guys, welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about a topic that is important to me. It's also one that I see a lot in my clinical work, and I think it's something that we're not always aware of. It's not always on our radar. We usually are looking out for like physical abuse or more obvious forms of abuse, and emotional abuse can be just as damaging to us, to our nervous system, to our body. There's actually studies that we feel the pain of emotional abuse similarly to how we would feel physical pain in our body. So I wanted to talk about what are some of the top signs that you may be being emotionally abused, or that someone you know is dealing with emotional abuse in their life. My first one is that this person pushes your boundaries. So by this, I mean that you will set expectations, or you will say no to things, and they will disregard your needs. They will not care that you said no, and they will still continue to do the things that you've asked them not to do, whether it be like making certain comments, doing certain things like checking up on you in your life, all of those kind of things. With this one, you can also feel like when you set boundaries, you're walking on eggshells about how they're going to react to that. Usually they don't like it when you say no to things, or you suggest doing something a different way than they want to. Because we have to remember, with emotional abuse, as with any kind of abuse, the goal behind the behavior is control. So it's about power and control. And so if you're finding that someone's pushing your boundaries and you're worried about setting boundaries because you are nervous about their mood or how they're going to react, that could be a key sign that there is some emotional abuse going on in your relationship. Number 2 is isolation. So emotional abusers will often not like when you have friends outside of the relationship, close relationships with family members. They generally don't want you having support outside of them. And this is a calculated behavior. The reason for this is that their belief is that other people might notice how they treat you. They might give you feedback about your relationship and whether or not you should be in it or not. And so they don't like that. That's a threat to them. And again, it's a threat to their control, which I mentioned is what abusers are always focused on. So the other way that this can be done in more modern society is through social media or your phone. If you have someone who is always going through your phone, or who is checking your social media, asking you to block people, delete people, not have certain friends, that can be a sign of emotional abuse or control. And so just being aware of that. Emotional abusers will often use another tactic called humiliation. So they will say things that are obviously offensive and then pass them off as kind of sarcasm or a joke. Sometimes they will tell you that you're too sensitive, that you are overreacting. And gradually what happens with this humiliation is that we begin to have our self-esteem really beaten down at. So over time, we start to believe these things are true about ourselves. We start to feel like we are these things that we're being told we are. And sometimes even emotional abusers will do this in front of other people. Like they'll call you stupid or dumb or make fun of you in front of their friends and kind of pass it off as joking behavior. So be really aware of this one. This is a really important one, especially because they don't like boundaries. So when we tell them, I really don't like when you call me stupid, they aren't going to care. They're going to tell you that this is your problem and that you need to deal with it. Another thing that comes up in emotionally abusive relationships is that there are really rigid expectations. In a normal, healthy relationship, yes, we have boundaries. These are usually mutually discussed, and they are boundaries that are set between both partners in a relationship or in a friendship or even in familial relationships. In an emotional abuse situation, expectations are used kind of like rules. So you can't stay out past this time because that doesn't make me feel comfortable, and that's a rule that's set by one person in the relationship. or you can't be friends with this person because I don't like them and I'm not comfortable with your friendship. So if you find that you're in a relationship where these rules are being kind of like made and they seem really random and they're not discussed with you, they're not things you're comfortable with, but they're expectations, and your partner's going to get angry if those expectations aren't met, that could be a sign of some emotional abuse. The next one that can happen is the silent treatment or stonewalling behavior. So this isn't just like I'm frustrated with you and I don't want to talk. This is when someone uses their love and affection as a token that is earned. So they use attention as a form of punishment or an attempt to have power over you. So if you do things that they don't like, they will use this tactic to make you re-earn their love or work harder. And so this, like I say, it's not like a normal kind of like argument where maybe you step away because you need that time to not communicate. This is a really calculated behavior that is done to have power and control again, right? So the next one is if you're always worried or walking on eggshells about someone and their emotion and mood. So if they are always reacting to things and you never know, they're really unpredictable in how they're going to treat you that day, that is another really key sign that there may be some emotional abuse going on for you. So I just bring these up because it's a really important topic to be aware of. There are some signs and signals that emotional abuse can become physical. There's also signs that emotional abuse over a long period of time can lead to pretty significant depression, anxiety, and some other mental health issues. So I really like to highlight this for people and just make them aware of this topic, that it does happen. If you feel like you're in an emotionally abusive relationship and you can't talk to your partner about this because it is so toxic and unhealthy, I really encourage you to seek therapy, to talk to someone and get that external perspective on your relationship. If you're really far into emotional abuse and you feel really isolated from all your connections and supports, this is where, again, like those therapy groups, support groups can be really helpful. And if you guys have other questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Don't forget to check out my Facebook page, my channel, and if you live near me or are interested in Skype therapy, that is also something that I provide.